If you look at a commentary channel today, whether it be a bigger channel's recent content or any smaller channel that's just cropping up in this new age of commentary, most of the time you can expect to find a lot of nuances, criticism, and they're typically more in-depth, longer videos. Overall, another way of putting this is a higher standard, a universal standard that is still being developed in what viewers expect to see in their favorite creators now. It can be said that the internet was once the Wild West, and while a lot of people still call it that some days, it, by and large, has a lot more regulation and rules as communities try to establish themselves more. For better or for worse, that is. This can be thought of as a whole, for the entire internet, but these regulations and evolutions are really just a result of the 1,000 tiny communities going through the same thing on their own. Here is the story of just one of them. Welcome back to Wish for Death Island, Population Me, and today we're going to look at the 2016 community that has been forgotten, lost to time like tears in rain. This has been a long time coming for me, and a good break from the super secret hard work I'm doing for another super secret important project that's totally worth it. The research element of this has been interesting, not only from the side of trying to rejuvenate my own unreliable memory, but also finding and watching these videos. They're like walking into a cave on a cliff face that no one else is supposed to remember, and then just realizing what the fuck is actually in there. A lot of the 2016 videos I watched I have a problem with, specifically the attitude that comes with their style of commentary that has now been refined in this current landscape to a degree, as the standard of what commentary should be. The problem I have is that 2016 commentary is talking down from a pedestal, as if you have never done something wrong or never been in the wrong yourself, or even on the wrong side of an argument, which I found was the attitude oftentimes even when the stuff that people were talking about were way more understandable than you would think, or just very minor things. I understand if this moral attitude is from weirdos faking sexual allegations or doing something awful as well, but not normal things that we can all relate to. They can be funny, sure, there's a difference between being funny and being on a pedestal, but whenever I've tried scripting something, I always also felt like I was being too preachy, so my method was to say, sorry for moral fagging, but that still doesn't erase the issue. It just puts a band-aid on it that doesn't fit. So I was paranoid about this, because even though this is a video I've really wanted to make, I just didn't want it to feel that way. So like with my Susie Lou video, I have come to a sort of realization that the good way to do this is exploring my own mistakes that have mirrored a person that I'm talking about if I can do so, or at least try to see it from their perspective. If I use my own mistakes to relate or discuss reasons to why this person might have done what they've done, then maybe I can not only be more insightful, but also not emulate the same mistakes that have caused this era of this community to self-implode in the way that it had. Personal growth is on the menu today. The first topic I am specifically dealing with is the idea of kids and teenagers having the sort of starstruck desire of emulation when it comes to the content that the kids are watching. This often leaves them open and vulnerable to the ugly underbelly of what they did not see until they come into contact with it themselves. This name might ring some bells, but probably not a lot of you. Today we're talking about Sinn0h. If this doesn't ring any bells, you might recognize him as JoJo ASMR. It's been really strange digging through this, because most of the time there's some sort of forum or video that has put together a lot of a timeline that you can watch, and everything is well documented, at least from what I've tried to see before, even if the content creator is kind of small. But with him, I've only found a channel that had like 11 of his videos and some of the comments on those videos to go off of and piece together my own version of what happened. With this being said, if there was anything that the comments weren't mentioning or any comments on the original videos that would have shown a darker side to this, I cannot find them anywhere, and really it just seems like it would be strange that this would be kept a secret. Usually when you find these sorts of things, there's always someone bringing up some drama that they were jaded by in the past, but I didn't really find that there. Here I'm going to present to you what I think happened, at least how it looks.
I was just chilling on YouTube minding my own business, and out of nowhere some kind of clickbait fucking cancer video called
Sinn0h comes across as very young here. He started this according to my impression, as a kid trying to emulate some of his favorite channels, and then completely deleted his channel, allowing himself as Sinn0h to be lost to time. Not included in the majority of these types of videos, because he was eaten alive by the community as it self-imploded. For whatever reason, maybe it was just because he was a kid, he was dogpiled and just decided to be done with it. Maybe it was just fun to pick a target, and that was what he became. Now, as JoJo ASMR, he has another channel that makes similar content to Sinn0h, but has a big step in quality that people have agreed by and large, especially in the comments of his old videos. So basically, he grew from his mistakes and decided to find the content that is fit for him, which I think is great. Really, I just think it's interesting to find stories like this, where it's good to demonstrate this as a symptom of the larger problem. And really, it just makes you wonder how many of these channels don't we have that really just went missing for the same reason. I did find his hacked Twitter and almost defunct Patreon that has no people on it, but it's still just there, I guess, that showed me he was around since 2014. And I don't have a specific channel date because I couldn't find the original dates from any archive sites or anything like that. The re-uploads, I'm not sure how many videos he actually made, but at least we have 11 of them. There doesn't seem to be another archive besides this. But the majority of the information that helped me come to the conclusion that I have for how his channel ended seemed to be from the Sinn0h rant video. He reads detractors' comments in a sarcastic tone, and they are mainly about how people thought he was a Leafy clone.
Yeah, he's a faggot. Ha ha ha, trying too hard to sound like Leafy. How ironic that you're using his name for views and subscribers. This is just clickbait for views, so then he can just have subs like Leafy. It's Leafy's success, not yours. Sinn0h, what happened to your voice? It sounds annoying now. Sorry to say. So meeting someone nowadays just means being on a Skype call with that person? Seriously, lol. I agree with you, man. This guy's a fucking cunt. But I mean, dude, your profile picture is quite interesting.
Because at the time, a lot of people, including bigger names like Pyrocynical, were called out as Leafy clones. I understand that a lot of these accusations can come from the similarity between the uppercase, all caps if you will, titles and the way that they were phrased, but keep in mind, at the time I'm pretty sure that this was just the standard that you would do. The standard, unlike today, was often unrefined and seems that whatever got you views was what was okay, even if it was hypocritical or shitty content. So a lot of channels emulated this exact format because that was the norm. Because Leafy was the most popular one in this category, people would often automatically say whatever people did that was similar to him was copying him. In the same way that in the unself-aware PewDiePie era, people who played the same games as him were said to be copying him, no matter the context, sometimes even if they were playing it before him. From this video we can also gather that he had around almost 30,000 subscribers, and the little bits that we can see of the like bars in his video from the footage he was using shows that they were very positively received. The main criticisms of this channel were, from what I can gather, clickbaiting, unoriginality, and leeching. And this is definitely something that can say a lot about a lot of content in the 2016 era, but why does that culminate into his channel being deleted, and his last video filled with resignation, frustration, and general regret, and distaste for basically everyone? Why is that?
Ah, the YouTube bandwagon. Surely its marvels never cease to amaze me. When there's even a little bit of a bleeding drama in the water, you know that the piranhas known as the commentary community will swarm. I briefly talked about Sinn0h in one of my rant videos, but I feel now is the time to really tear into this nibbler wannabe. Yeah, there are tons of smaller YouTubers out there who do make videos on drama and trending topics, yet they still struggle to even get over 1,000 views on the subject matter. Now, while this doesn't debunk Sinn0h, as I am well aware, what does get you more attention is promotion. You know, doing collaborations with higher level YouTubers, getting shoutouts, and appearing on larger channels will dramatically boost your channel in subs. While I may not like the entire group, Kingstar's influence did manage to build up Leafy in grade A under A, and he's doing that for the same for Tommy and C. What I'm getting at here is that there are many more ways to build up your channel other than just relying on drama. Or, hey, you could do what Sinn0h did and self-promote yourself in the comments of larger YouTubers so that—
Now, I'm not defending these things because bandwagoning and spamming is just not a good thing to do in the first place, so I'm not saying that this person was unjustly talked about, but it does seem to be a bit exaggerated because of that sort of cutthroat mentality. It's just a bit difficult to explain, which is why I have a bunch of clips from these, but the only video that I found that actually had some sort of content was the Manga Kamen video, and that's because his videos overall I think do have a bit more in-depth than a lot of those commentary videos did. So again, this is another example of someone who has kind of evolved with it and kept it going, which is why he hasn't faded away. What I'm trying to say in this is that when I say that there wasn't anything cancelable, I guess, it's just these were critiques. These weren't these huge things that they were being compared to. Like, some channels would just outright have some massive thing about how this channel is like evil or whatever, and then have this video in the same sort of vein when they're really two different things. I think one of them is a critique and one of them is more of an examining of someone who actually does something really, really bad. The way that things were kind of blown out of proportion is one of the things that I'm saying with unjust, putting yourself up on a pedestal and exaggerating everything. I mean, I do still see it as a kid who kind of got in too deep and someone who sees this kind of behavior from what I can find and did some sort of shame and regret for his own actions, so I guess you could call that character development. But it's just something that wasn't helped by the environment that I was in, besides the few people like this person who actually managed to give a proper critique, I guess. And so that's overall what I wanted to say about him. But I don't want to show any ill will, and because this person has clearly changed, I will just be referring to them in a more kinder mindset. Well, gathering again from the 11 archived videos, I sort of pieced a reason together. I found that the content he made, at least looking at it now, is not great. Like I said, I don't really like visiting a lot of this content, it was just a little tiring. But it seemed to me that he was accused a lot by people for spamming comment sections, and I can't find any of these, of course, but this was one of the reasons why people started sending a lot of random hate to him that just morphed into a kind of monolith. A lot of small things added up, and you can see how it's upset it makes him in his last video.
Had the audacity to post a tweet under that, leaking my private Skype. There's so many things fucking wrong with that, man. That's just not cool. I don't think I'm... sorry. I'm quite a person of... I need my personal space, and anyone that would try to compromise that, let alone someone I've had respect for all this time, that's fucked up. So he leaks it, 20 people, 30 people next minute then start adding me on Skype. You don't do that. I guess it just sucks when you have respect for someone. Anyway, it's kind of funny that a satirical guy is built on insult comedy is getting emotional over something like a Skype leaking. Anyway, I just had to vent this out, but new video will be out later today, hopefully, and thank you so much for watching.
Looking at his content now, I'm not commenting on the ASMR because I personally just don't like ASMR in general and I wouldn't really be able to provide a good review, but the other content seems to be fine. So more context to me just seems like he was really unsatisfied with his own content as well that came from himself, and instead of having a thoughtful, more critique sort of atmosphere, the entire commentary community was really used to just exaggerating as much as possible and making everything worse than it was, and this led to more people kind of getting on a bandwagon for something that they didn't even really see was there. It was just fun to do that. He could have improved and kept the channel, but at the time it was probably just easier to delete it because of how angry everyone else was getting. Because it seems that he finally did get the critique that he needed, whether it be through a break or something else, and has finally found that sort of peace with himself in making content. Another reason is, even though he was a smaller channel, a lot of people seem to forget about, he actually managed to talk to some major people like Keemstar and Leafy himself, although not all on friendly terms. So my hypothesis again is that he was clashing with them, and inevitably got haters from both encounters and also ended up with his Twitter being hacked, which is still around, despite it just ceasing activity in 2016. A lot of the time I found watching through older videos in general is that there was often a trend. When one person made a video on someone, everyone did within the day or something. So a lot of the time one person's attitude would just get mirrored by everyone else. Nowadays I understand that the same thing can happen, but oftentimes it's more in-depth. So someone will pick a particular point and just go way more in-depth than anyone else has in videos on the topic. A lot of the time in the videos I was watching, everyone just kind of said the same thing. And I can also see that here. This was one of the mini trends that was making waves along other channels. I found some smaller channels from back then that made rants on him, and these really just said the same thing that he said in his Sinn0h rant to a T, but without sarcasm. All of them were identical. There were no major screenshots or evidence that he did anything super bad, like I said before, that I can find, that would have get him, let's say, cancelled today, but really he just seemed to be someone younger who looked up to people in this flourishing community, so decided to try his hand at it and got in too deep, to the point where he became disassociated and dissatisfied through personal growth, as the sharp anger and desire to see someone destroyed as the sort of proto-cancel culture was directed in a small part to him, and also doesn't help that he aligned himself with that in the first place. That's really the sort of story that I found from this. Now, again, to relate to this to myself in certain points, not in a lot of ways, but just in small ways, I can sort of relate to this. I can very much relate to being a dumb kid trying to look up to certain content creators and things like that. I was also a big dumb kid and wanted to emulate what I was a fan of without realizing what's going on the other side. I only really got the internet when I was 14 or 15 in a regular way, around 2014 or so, because I used it before, but not really understood it at large. I only ever used it at school at the library because of rural town struggles. I didn't even know what a YouTuber was. Being a dumb kid who liked horror, I stumbled across the horror community and decided to emulate them because I loved them so much. The stories I tried to read were all deleted by me now because I ran into an issue that I never knew about. See, a lot of these stories were posted to the Creepypasta wiki, which is largely regarded, or at least at the time was, as public domain. And at the time there wasn't any widely known regulations on that, so I narrated a few, and got a few comments on why that wasn't allowed because of permissions, but I ignored them or downright was defensive and rude to them because I didn't understand what they meant, and there were people like Mr. Creepypasta in the community who had basically done the same thing, even as big as a channel he is. Later on, it turned out that these authors had their stories put on this website without their knowledge, so there was serious copyright infringement that I had no idea about, and I immediately just felt scummy and gross, like a shitty person, for not making an effort to understand stuff like this. Like, as soon as I clicked it, I was like, holy shit, this is so terrible. Just let me delete all of this because I am part of the problem. And thus became the first part of personal growth for me that we all kind of have as kids, where we realize what self-awareness is and how to understand more nuanced side of issues, or how to research more before you go into something. To continue along the same lines, I actually think that the horror community is either going through or has gone through the same thing that these commentary channels have kind of gone through in this genre. I decided that I would actually go back to looking at the creepypasta community to see how they were doing after not really being interested in it for so long. To my surprise, I found out that there was or is a strike on Reddit for these authors to negotiate the rights to their stories with the narrators. Not only that, but some huge channels that I once listened to, like I gave an example of, were guilty with not giving credit and just outright refusing to actually reflect on these actions, despite having the opportunity to learn from it. Like, especially as someone who wants to be a writer, I really extend not only my support to the writers, but also just to express that I really think the entire community needs a serious overhaul. I would have thought that this would have happened already years down the line, but it really needs to happen. Again, this mirrors the commentary community, because the standard sort of throwing up a fair use screen at the start of the video or in the description was not something that I saw often at the time, nor was the "don't harass this person" comment until later on, like in the middle of the leafy stuff. But I think in order to partially solve the issue, these creepypasta channels seriously need disclaimers in the description or on the screen at the start describing the copyright relationship, because a big portion of the audience are big dumb kids like I was, even to this day, and if they see this message from their favorite people, they will know not to do the same thing. Furthermore, there was another channel called Feminism is for Nobody during the anti-SJW era. This has apparently been deleted because I tried looking for it and I couldn't fucking find it anywhere, who, from what I personally remember, had a description on his channel saying, "Hey, if you come across any old comments from me being abrasive, I was a stupid 12-year-old and I don't stand by those comments now. Please understand." So this is a mindset that is more common than you think. I don't know what happened to this guy, or if he self-imploded too, I don't know, but what is said there, it again shows another weird sort of path that a lot of people on the internet take. To end the segment on Sinn0h, it just comes across to me as another segment of people exaggerating something and it ending in not that great of a way. It just seems like the commentary community began eating itself, so they turned on him with the same super focused laser that destroyed their subjects and would soon destroy themselves. In a smaller kind of way, he was signaled out like Zaptie was, who was our next subject, and not given a chance to fit these impossible standards. He only realized how impossible the standard was when it was leveled at him by the same commentary community, and he saw it for the monster it was, and got disenfranchised with it. Again, as I said in my Suzy-Lou video, the problem only really seems obvious to you when you're on the other side of it, more than you think. So as this was an example of 2016 commentary before cancel culture, we should create a neat timeline to go over the actual thing itself through the YouTuber Zaptie. Now, this is a name that you've seen pop up a lot over the last few years, as the truth has finally come to light. The first cancelled YouTuber or Turkey Tom's videos on the subject are great and go into detail, and I will link those and go over the timeline in a more general way that you need to know, and then take a different route along looking at the lines of the community itself. What you need to know is that Zaptie was one of those YouTubers that arose out of the scene from the depths that many channels would stay in forever. There was something about his content, or maybe luck, that launched him into the spotlight to the point where Zaptie had 50,000 subscribers and it was going up and up. He was making friends with big content creators, and even though I never really saw his content myself, I just didn't really feel like it. I remember watching a stream from YMS playing some game and saw Zaptie in the chat, with YMS recognizing him with a mutual friend type of attitude. So Zaptie really was known in more communities than you would think, and respected with bigger names.
One of the most prominent venues that Zap posted content to was his podcast titled Hot with Soup! Hosted by Elvis the Alien, Bionic Pig, and Ed. The three used this podcast as a way to discuss current events in the YouTube community. This show included guests like Colossal is Crazy, I Hate Everything, Chris Raygun, Keemstar, Bunty King, Lieutenant Corbus, and other people who at the time were heralded as some of the most popular people on this side of the platform. He even managed to star in a Leafy is Here video, taking part in his final of the infamous Keemstar rant videos.
However, soon there came out a story that he was a pedophile who was messaging underage girls or girl, and that he was a sociopath. At the time, this narrative and the story became one that soon forced him off the internet. In the same way, it was just something that one person said, and then everyone made videos about it saying the same thing, and it all culminated and snowballed. It didn't help that his voice was kind of muted even more by his own depression as well, which led to a self-destructive attitude that I for one know way too well, and only encouraged his implosion. He had been ganged up on by a bunch of mean girls, as it were, and it was his day to pay. And this kind of reminds me of the Inaba situation of recent. See, this person has been wanting to make a group channel with his friends for months and always talked about it, and the channel finally did happen, but specifically excluding him. He understandably was upset on stream and went on to say that there was no drama, so I cannot know what happened, but it does come across to people on the outside as a sort of mean girl thing, where people were talking behind his back and constantly excluding him. And another common theme between the two was the involvement of someone named Imallexx, so I cannot help but think that he was a leader in this group in general of deciding who would be excluded next. It seems to be a common theme with him. Let me be honest with you, I don't give less of a shit about these people. They're not channels that I watch and I don't really care. I don't have anything against them, I just don't give a shit. I guess the commentary that I watch is like a niche thing, or like a certain group that I don't really go too well into other groups. So I only know about this secondhand from researching this now, and looked into it briefly for this comparison, but it really seemed to be that for all the other OG channels besides Pyrocynical and Nafuckas, there is still a group mentality or hive mind that has persisted since then, and this, for some reason right now, is starting to come back at them for whatever reason, even if it's just people that got tired of it. Anyway, back to Alex. It was set in stone that Zaptie's small mark on history would be smeared by bile and disgust, villainy, and only recently has this forgotten tale of the targeted takedown of sorts really come to light. Only recently, in the last 2 years or so, has this history actually been looked into and people can finally see that, which is why I included this into the Forgotten Tales, because it really is one, and it would have been as well for a lot longer, if it weren't for those meddling kids. No one would have known what really happened, and Zaptie would be nothing more than a rarely spoken name of a boogeyman of sorts, and a lot of people still see it that way. Falsely, of course, so it's important that it gets out there more. Basically, it was found out that there was no evidence to this sort of accusation anyway, and everything was taken out of context. The age of the girl kept changing as well, and the person at the head of the witch hunt was pushing the narrative of sociopathy and didn't even have a rudimentary understanding of what the term means.
The first allegation from the podcast is that Zaptie is a diagnosed sociopath who was lying to all of his friends and using them for views.
That he was a diagnosed sociopath. That's what it told me. Now, obviously, if you don't know what a sociopath is, he the basics are he just can't feel human emotion.
Now, I'm no psychologist, and it's clear that none of the people here are either, because even the definition of a sociopath that they cite here is clearly wrong. A sociopath, or someone diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, is someone who has a mental health disorder characterized by disregard for other people. Those with antisocial personality disorder tend to lie, break laws, act impulsively, and lack regard for their own safety or the safety of others. In this definition, lifted directly from the DSM-5, nowhere does it say that the person suffering from it cannot experience human emotion. We can go ahead and throw their assumptions about this behavior out of the window because the diagnosis that he, according to Imallexx, claimed to have doesn't even line up with the behavior that they describe.
First of all, there's no blood test for this. It's a subjective opinion of a trained professional, and that's it. They don't call it sociopathy. They call it antisocial personality disorder, and it doesn't go like this.
The origin of the word sociopath being brought up is still unknown to this day, but considering Alex's behavior since then, labeling people as things without sufficient proof, I have a sinking feeling that he may be the one responsible for interjecting the word sociopath into the conversation as a label for Ed's actions. So to conclude this accusation, I think it is safe to say that it was completely false.
The others involved, to me at least, showed evidence of remorse and not really knowing what they wanted to do because their friend was kind of spiraling to the point where they just didn't understand if what they would do would make it worse or not. They're coming back to it now, actually having some sort of reflection about it. But the one that does not show remorse, growth, regrets, or any sense of humility was the man at the head, the sociopathy definer himself, Imallexx. This too is a forgotten tale to me, because there was once a point where Imallexx was generally really well liked in these videos and across the board. He was really popular. Now, although Imallexx does have a growth in his sub count, his success kind of came at the cost of him becoming generally maligned in the community besides a few friends in his group. Everyone else only mentions him when they talk about how he is a danger to the platform and how he fucks people over. Well, Alex soon went through a series of scandals involving him falsely accusing men of being predators with no evidence. These weren't just random people. He had interacted with Zaptie quite a bit before as a friend, and suddenly seemed to cut him off and use the spiral of mental health in his friend to lift his own career with accusations, leaving the man behind. His other friend, Michael, or Sinn0h, even stayed with him for months because they were such close friends, and when it came down to a few thoughts deciding to plan rape accusations for the fun of it, Alex decided on gaining subscribers from the controversy, and that this was a better move than actually sticking by his friend, despite their closeness. So, this ended up with him being one of the loudest voices to talk about the predator. Again, one of the loudest voices. He even accused people on Twitter of being predators just for disagreeing with him, and the latest is him accusing Perez Hilton of being a predator towards young girls on TikTok.
Perez Hilton left a comment on the TikTok saying, "Anyone else thinks it's inappropriate for 15-year-old to dance to this?" Carly replies, "I'm sorry, I'm just trying to have fun." Now, you would think this comment indicates that he's anything but a pedophile, but apparently Imallexx did not see it that way. This is how he rationalizes this comment into meaning that Perez Hilton is into young children.
Okay, well, how do I go in from there? How do I start? With a prison sentence? Maybe. I'm just suggesting it. I'm just gonna throw that one out there. For 25 years to life. This man, who you see in this video, is attacking Charli D'Amelio, another TikToker, who's 15. And he's attacking her because she went to the beach. He made a video saying, "Oh, she's too sexy, so her parents should be ashamed."
My daughters are not dancing to songs about taking D on TikTok while dancing like grown women to that song in a bikini.
Now, hey, look, man, being out there going like, "Oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't let my kids do that. Oh God, if my kids did that." When you post videos like this.
And yes, we're talking Charli D'Amelio.
And yes, I'm obsessed over a 15-year-old girl. Does that upset you? Does that weird you out? Well, unlucky, I'm going to keep on doing it. Because that's what somebody would do, wouldn't they? You know, if a police go, Oh, mate, maybe you shouldn't hang around schools. You don't go, hey, back at the school again. You stay away.
I think Charlie's a sweet girl and talented. My real issue is with her parents. Why'd the dad and the mom leave that video up? I would have made my daughter take it down.
That's cool. You have kids, Paris. I'm going to say it again. Look after them. Please, instead of posting videos like this one. It doesn't mean that you're any less weird for having an obsession over this 15-year-old's life, especially when you yourself are posting these very sexual videos involving like 20-year-old kids.
Now, this situation is a bit tricky because Perez is kind of a creepy person to me, but the point is that the accusations Alex made are entirely false. So if there is some real accusation to be made of Perez doing something towards another person, these accusations that are clearly false will not help that real person get their story heard. Every false accusation, even if it is against someone who is creepy, does not help the victims that are actually allegedly involved. Now again, I just said he seemed creepy. I don't actually know anything, so I'm not gonna say that he is one. Someone can be creepy in a non-sexual way, but Imallexx spreading these accusations does not help, because he clearly made these ones up or are just taking them out of proportion. Even with James Charles, Alex continuously said that this man was a predator, as one of the loudest voices continuously saying this over and over again. And I really truly believe that if James Charles wasn't so popular and had an even louder voice during his response video, Alex would never have apologized or done any updates on it whatsoever. The original video of Alex accusing him is still up and monetized, so he will continue to make money from these accusations. But he only apologized because he feared he would be cancelled due to the amount of coverage the story was getting. I really believe that just looking at him. All of these false accusations only hurt the people involved, whether that be victims who have actually gone through things who are now being thrown into this because of what the accusation is, or people who are falsely targeted. Notice how Alex only goes after men, because especially if they're men, proving their innocence is a lot harder because we tend to see men as the predators. Men are generally treated with harsher sentences as well, so Alex picking men as his target assures that his teenage girl stan base will go after them without actually questioning the allegations because they're men. And Alex has more of a chance of getting away with these and gaining clout without the consequence. Now, the reason, again, I call this a forgotten story is because this was happening throughout all of the 2016 era, and we had no idea because to some, Alex is such a welcoming person on the surface to deceive people in this way. He was really a snake amongst the tall grass, and he still has such a big fan base despite all of the videos about him. It doesn't really seem to have much power beyond a few dislikes. But this, I guess, is only the beginning of the tide turning, so it doesn't seem effective, but in the long run, as long as you speak your mind, you will see change and become a part of it. So the more people that bring this up, the better. Another thing that is curious is that Alex always seemed to be aware of these things before they were spoken about, as if he was some sort of authority on them. For Zaptie, Sinn0h, and apparently the 20-something other cases of predatory behavior amongst his friends. Alex always knew about them beforehand, but apparently could not do anything to stop them. I understand this happening one time, but not this many times. Plus, this is something that he says in general for drama, not just sexual dramas. I found this episode of the Baited podcast involving a drama with a person named Chubbs, who we'll get into after this, and this person had a drama where they got a 12-year-old to edit for them and then never paid the 12-year-old
$20, all right, to edit a video for him. Nick Cash thought that money wasn't fair enough, and he made a video fucking calling out Leafy. And everybody agreed at that time that Leafy is a piece of shit that took advantage of Nick Cash, all right? Now, Chubbs did this to a 12-year-old and didn't even pay him. Where is the fucking outrage?
Not one person made that
Alex,
comparison yet. Everybody's got fucking short-term memory loss or something.
That fucking Ice Age motherfucker, Imallexx, had the audacity to fucking... Because I basically called out all commentators on Twitter. I said, all you commentators should be making videos about Chubbs and calling him out. Because if anyone else would have done this, you would have done it, right? And this fucking asshole thinks I'm talking about him. You're not the only commentator, Imallexx. And I wasn't having a go at you. But since you're so fucking naive and so fucking stupid and self-centered to respond to that response, thinking I'm talking about you, when you responded to me on Twitter, you said this, Alex, all right? You said, I've known about this situation since October, and I've been telling Chubbs since October to pay the kid, all right? I'm on your side with this, Keemstar. Really? Really? You've known about it since October, and you didn't say anything publicly? You knew...
It's a private conversation. You can't release that shit publicly.
Knew about the situation for a while, yet did nothing. Someone who wants to remain on top as though they always knew everything, and at the same time the loudest voice among the dissenters to please the bloodthirsty fans when needed, and appear like some sort of career destroyer. This is the exact mindset from 2016 that imploded the community, and while other people have either faded away because they refused to change or did change, Imallexx for some reason has still clung to this mentality and apparently been successful. But even now, this mindset and behavior can only lead to more implosion. And this is what we're all witnessing the beginning of. This whole video could have been made on Imallexx alone, but if you wanted me to go into that, I could in another time, I guess. But for now, I will leave this Imallexx segment with a comparison. Imallexx reminds me of Byakuya from Danganronpa before the character development. He starts off as this bossy guy that wants everyone to know that he knows everything and just wants to be the loudest voice or de facto leader, and is frustrated by everyone else not being as good as him, even tampering with evidence to shake things up for his own amusement to gain from it. Only Byakuya realizes his shortcomings as the series comes along and becomes a better person to help his friend. And Imallexx isn't. Chubbs was a 600k subscriber channel that was well liked. I never watched his content, but going back to it, I found the same content as a bland reaction channel, but with a copy-paste personality from the 2016 era. I didn't like it. He has these videos called If Blank Was Honest, and instead of altering his voice, using the person's mannerisms, or doing anything that you would expect from an actual parody that has work in it, he just repeats the lines of "I'm a dishonest piece of shit" over the footage of that person zoomed in and out.
I'm a 19-year-old beauty bozo with the personality of an adult film title writer. I need to preface this and say that this video is me talking as if I'm James Child. Helped me out to the point where I was making over $2,000 a video. With this help, it essentially switched on my non-existent brain to absolutely smash out content and become one of the biggest creators on the platform.
There was no differentiation between these other than the name and the visuals of the person, so they were really boring. But then came the controversy of scamming a 12-year-old, which goes as follows.
Real quick, for anybody that's listening to this podcast that doesn't understand what's going on, Chubbs is a YouTuber with like 600,000 subscribers, and basically what happened is he had a video edited for a CSGO gambling site, and he had a 12-year-old edit the video for him. Now, for this said video, all right, Chubbs made $5,000 from that sponsorship, so he had money from that video. He offered the editor only $30, but then still didn't even give him that $30. Well, apparently the kid wasn't getting paid, or it didn't seem like he was getting paid, so the kid asked for a favor in return. He asked Chubbs if Chubbs would be in one of his videos, if Chubbs would give him like a couple minutes of audio to be in the kid's own video. You know, this would be a good opportunity for him. And Chubbs replied to this kid, again, who has already edited a video for free for him at this point, or was supposed to be $30 but never paid him. But Chubbs responds to this kid and says,
bit of fucking context. He did offer to pay this kid $30 at first, but the kid refused it at first.
And then later the kid wanted it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just so we got that straight. But regardless, the kid then asks for a favor back, and Chubbs charges him $150 to appear in his video to give him some audio, which is kind of fucked up, all right, in my opinion. All right, so Chubbs charges the kid $150, and when the kid complains that he's not getting the audio because Chubbs never sends him the fucking audio for the video, Chubbs goes and asks him for another $50. Tried to get $200 out of the fucking kid.
As you can see, his channel completely stagnated, and even though he apparently apologized without apologizing many times, and then complained about his depression and all of the usual stuff, his channel was still stagnating. He was still trying to upload even early as last year, but finally created another channel to start fresh. This attracted his most core fans initially, but even they lost interest because his channel has not grown at all just because of this sort of mindset that he refuses to change. He has in essence already really faded away. Seriously, he pulls barely the views that I pull, and I am a sixth of his channel size. Some of my videos have more views than his, consistently. Like, this is a relic of sadness. But how many channels will we see like this that we don't even remember to look for? How many have faded with time as they just didn't see the landscape change until they had already been placed in a foreign plane? On a similar note, there was a channel called Hey Watch Your Mouth. This channel is still around today, but you will only find extended let's plays of Pokemon and stuff like that, with no sign of the commentary besides video game related. I do remember watching some of his videos, and he was also very outspoken during the Leafy drama, when he spoke about Leafy offering to pay $20 for a lot of work, similar to Chubbs, actually, because this became a sort of meme when people were talking about Leafy as well. However, he soon deleted this video, and a lot of people initially deleted their Leafy videos once it came to a head, and I'm not sure why. Even Elvis the Alien did this and then re-uploaded it much later. I guess for the initial remorse, as if they didn't realize that they were sort of cancelling him, and then realizing that they had a point in putting them back up because it was fine. Either way, if I had to guess why Hey Watch Your Mouth decided to quit, I would say that he was tired of the commentary, in the same way that Sinn0h was, and wanted a change. He seems to be someone who is happy, but is still caught up in a limbo of sorts where he doesn't entirely know what he wants to do. At least that's my impression when I watched his content. The next one is an example of someone who is kind of in between. There's a channel called Birdman who I only ever found because, no joke, I remember watching half of one of his videos in 2016 at some point, and then completely forgetting about it. I wrote down some names earlier to research this video, and then I went to bed and dreamed about remembering some of the other ones that I forgot. And in the dream, for some reason, because dream logic, I was sitting in like an RPG Maker world and like there were goblins or something, and I was just writing down commentary names. I don't fucking know. But either way, I remember him. I remember him, Chubbs, everything like that. This is the level of research that we have, dream interpretation. But I'm using this as a sort of example for a inner vacuum type of thing. What I mean by this is that all of the major commentary channels either exist in one big community or small ones, but you can know a name of a couple other channels just from the periphery of the channel that you're subscribed to. They'll mention them in some aspect and you'll see a sort of camaraderie there. But I've never really seen that for Birdman. I haven't heard of him besides on my own at all. Never. And it's kind of odd. From what I can see, this person began playing games and then slowly around 5 years ago sporadically began posting content that he saw got more views than the gameplay, and gradually shifted to those videos, aka commentary, and his channel really started to pick up from there. Only his channel is still going strong, with views that are really good. He seems to have kept to himself. I bring him up as the control subject of sorts in this research paper, if you will. These people are being tested on the playing field with maturation, and those who lack maturation are getting into controversy and destroying themselves, with the hypothesis being focused on the time of implosion relating to the lack of maturation. And then there's those who have a good community and stave off the implosion through their own personal growth and maturity. Birdman is like the middle of the road because he has the same sort of story commentary, and almost seemed like a blank page at some point, existing in his own corner that I have never heard about from anyone else and is still going strong. Again, this isn't in a bad way, I'm not saying that at all, but it's just interesting how neutral this is. It's like an isolated vacuum of a channel. Somehow this person entered the community and somehow became an outside of the community simultaneously without causing a space-time rip. Like, even if he had been in any drama, I just don't see anything about it. I don't see anyone giving a shit about it. They're just letting him do his thing. Between the lines of commentary drama, cult mindsets, and obscure beginnings, these people, I don't even know how many, exist. And we don't even know about them besides foggy memories that we possess. Again, these are pretty big channels, but they just kind of exist on their own. These are enigmas, and I wonder how many of them are actually out there that I've never heard of yet are really popular. It is strange and oddly eerie. The internet. Now for my last one, as you know, my goal was not to put myself above these people as a preacher during commentary. I also don't want to put the channels that I like on a pedestal either. I don't want to put them up higher. So I'm actually going to end this with a little bit of a reflection and critique on Pyrocynical himself. The reason that a lot of people bring up him in videos like this, or their comment sections might bring him up, is always to kind of share the name of a person who was in the 2016 commentary community that actually matured and made good content and stayed true to themselves. So in this final statement, I'm trying to make an exploration or explanation of why. Firstly, a lot of the boost on his channel was from commentary. As with Hey Watch Your Mouth, if you make one type of content, the majority of your audience might find it weird if you suddenly switch. But why does Pyrocynical still have his audience? Well, for one, the change was gradual. I did initially enjoy these videos that he made when I was a kid, when I watched them during the 2016 era, but going back, I prefer his new content, and I wouldn't really go back to the old ones unless I was specifically watching them for like this video research, in all honesty. It did still possess the kind of same surface level type of commentary with the gameplay that annoyed me a little bit. Even then, he was still very level-headed and did not possess the same hunger to make everyone seem evil. Even with the I'm triggered SJW lady as an example, while everyone else was kind of raging at her and making her seem like a villain, Pyro was one of the few people that actually tried to understand what she was saying with her point of view and why she might have self-image issues and depression to be triggered in this way. So when he ultimately disagreed with her, it was measured and reasonable, like an actual response.
Now, to be fair in her defense, she does make one point about being triggered that is actually like a humane response.
I look at my thin, beautiful sisters and I'm triggered and I just can't get away from it.
Now, this is actually like a normal thing because, you know, like I've said in previous videos, a lot of people aren't happy with their appearance. They're really not. They think that their appearance is disgusting and they've got a really bad opinion on themselves, even though other people think that their appearance is fine. Now, this is actually a justified thing to get annoyed about because a lot of people aren't happy with their appearance, even if they think that people around them think that their appearance is okay. You know, it's not like you can just say to her, hit the gym, you fat pig. If she was saying more stuff like this and not saying, you know, when I breathe fucking argon in our atmosphere, I get triggered and all this other random shit. If she literally stuck to normal, relatable human things, mate, then this wouldn't actually be a cringe video and this would just be a woman opening up about herself, but no!
Again, it had its faults, but it was still something that was better. So I think that the core reason his audience stuck with him is because your audience kind of mirrors you in a way. If you yourself are openly wanting to change and embrace your faults and grow as a person, I think your audience will embrace those values as well because you kind of extend this to other people. So despite some tumultuous things, because he had that mindset, he encouraged that from people around him and started to kind of disassociate and become more aware of what was going on around him. And because he was feeling this way, his audience kind of mirrored that as well and left with him. And the new ones that came in understood the consistency of his character enough to feel like they understood him as a person, even if they didn't really understand the drama of the past. He did initially do this sort of trend wave thing where everyone was kind of talking about this specific people for no real reason, but a lot of the audience for these types of things are just people who are also interested in the trend and not necessarily the content creator. But I think that the difference was he offered a relatable and unique view that made people start to be more interested to hear from him specifically rather than the topic. And this is a sort of inversion of what made the other commentary channels kind of fade away. Thus, when the Petscop video came out and the Cube one, which is one of my personal favorites, they went down so well because they more showcased the person talking and what their passion was about rather than just something that people were subscribed to that got shout out every now and again, basically. At the end of the day, that's the lesson that everyone needed but only a few learned. I think that's what matters. If you try and infuse who you really are with your content, it just helps people relate to you a little bit more and it has a lot of staying power because of honesty. And at the end of the day, all we really have is the stories that we leave behind. When it comes to ending a video like this, it is always expected to have a conclusion that encapsulates the general theme or leaves you with a quotable message that will stick in the minds of the viewers. But this is not what I'm good at. I've tried and failed to come up with something to end it this way, but I've realized that I could do something else instead. Find the words of another to encapsulate this feeling. To end the proper part of this video, I will leave you with the words of Faunia from Philip Roth's The Human Stain. We leave a stain, we leave our imprint. Impurity, cruelty, abuse, error, excrement, semen. There is no other way to be here. Nothing to do with disobedience, nothing to do with grace or salvation or redemption. It's in everyone. Indwelling, inherent, defining, the stain that is there before its mark. So this ended the official part of it, but I wanted to kind of make a couple statements on some loose off-the-cuff thoughts if you want to hear them. Firstly, I've had some requests to talk about some true crime or weird people as I've mentioned in my last video, so thank you for the interest and I will be working on something in the future. The Batwoman episode 3 recap is what I'll be uploading next, as far as I have planned for now. The last thing about this video is this is not really a long video. Long man videos are more than an hour. An hour is a normal video time. This is a short video. Get it together, pussy. I apologize for not presenting a case as in-depth as I would have gone. It's just a struggle to develop the questions that I need to track down the answers for. So I am treating this as a kind of unofficial part 1, because now it's out there, I have a part 2 in mind and I've been wanting to make this for a while, which is specifically a look back at the BuzzFeed response era, at the peak of anti-SJW content, I guess. So I'm planning on getting more in-depth on this in that video as well, now that I have some context after the experience of making this. So if there is something I missed, I can now know this, I can know this from other people and talk about it in part 2 because I'll actually have something to search for. So I apologize for the lack of in-depth analysis as of late, just a mood, honestly. But thank you for watching. Now get the fuck off my island.